Coming off from a loss and a victory from day 1, now we have Code Zero versus the Tigers here for day number 2 in MPL Season 13. Oheb was able to get the first blood in the early game, and there were a lot of good sets from Haji, which resulted to Blacklist being able to get a few kills and some turtles in between. However, Minan of course will not let that go, as they get a lot of fight backs and were able to retaliate. One example being Domeng being able to pick off Yue and securing the Lord for Minana. Towards the end of game number 1, the Tigers were not able to roar as loudly as they can because Sensui's instincts were still the ones that ended up on top. Now Oheb was able to use I'm Offended onto Kaizen, who be able to pull him back and pretty much make sure Sensui was able to get the objective. After that, it pretty much was Blacklist being able to ride on the momentum and the lead, and then being able to close out game number 1. If you want to break the code, you actually need to get through their macro, them being Blacklist. But it is something we were able to see in game number 2 by Minana Evos, especially in this fight where they were able to predict their opponent's movements and get the small victory. Minana's macro was so stable and they were so patient to the point that Domeng was finally able to ramp up on damage. Now, even though Blacklist was able to escape a handful of times from the attempts of Minana, there's really no one that can escape this Tiger's sharp claws. After that, there was a handful of mistakes from Haji, and Minana was able to utilize that and pretty much use it to their advantage and close out game number 2. For the last game of week 1 day 2, you can really cut the tension with a knife. Now the early game was pretty slow, pretty usual, but during the mid game, Edward, you could rename him Dennis because he was such a menace in the Land of Dawn. With his CC, he can really just walk around and disrupt the team fight and positioning of Minana. Unfazed from what happened in game number 2, their macro was still as strong as ever in game number 3. Now, the men in black and gold were able to get the Lord a few minutes after Edward was disrupting the front and the back lines. After a few more skirmishes, it just so happened that Oheb as well as Sensui, with all of these good micro decisions, they were able to get the Lord, get a few more kills in their pockets, and pretty much close out the match with smiles on their faces.